Hey guys, Dan here with your TV news and reviews for the week. Only 4 new shows to review for you this week as the year is, still getting started and networks are still kind of slowly rolling out their new products for mid-season. Netflix, of course, is always on top of things, so we have 2 Netflix shows for you yet again this week. But also, we're going to take a look at NBC's Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist, and we have the Party of 5 reboot on Freeform. But ahead of that, we've got a ton of TV news for you because just a few days ago was the Television Critics Association Winter Summit, and so a lot of the networks were there talking about their new shows, new ideas for shows, deals that they've signed, etc., etc., but it also includes a bunch of season pickups and cancellations, and we usually start with that, so there's a lot of pickups to tell you about. We'll go, I guess, network by network. So for the renewals, NBC has given a 3-year renewal to New Amsterdam, which is, fairly unheard of. I mean, unless it's like your top performer, like they gave This Is Us a 3-season pickup last year. But apparently, as it has This Is Us on the same night, New Amsterdam does very well for NBC. It's one of their top shows, so they have given that 3 years after this season is over. So we'll be seeing those guys for a while. CBS All Access has announced that ahead of their premiere of Picard, they have renewed it for a second season and also told them to start working on ideas for season 3. They haven't officially picked it up for a season 3 yet, but obviously, they have a lot of faith in this show. I mean, it makes sense. Star Trek is one of their premier programs on CBS All Access, the new Discovery show. So why not pick up Picard? I mean, obviously there's a lot of anticipation building for that show. So that makes total sense. And then also, they're really trying to get into the more youth-oriented fare. We talked about this maybe a couple of months ago when they had sort of gotten a lot of old Nickelodeon shows and are going to reboot a couple of them, like weird ones though. Danger Mouse is one of them, like not, Rocko's Modern Life or something. It's sort of even a little more obscure. But in addition to that, they premiered just yesterday, so I'll probably have these reviews on next week's show. A George of the Jungle, Mr. Magoo, and Lassie animated reboots. So that's going to be exclusively for the All Access site. So that is good to go. Netflix, just one renewal. They weren't at the TV Critics Association, but they announced this week that You, the thriller You, will be premiering its 3rd season in 2021. So that has been officially picked up. I still have yet to watch this show, but it's getting so much buzz. The first season was on Lifetime, and then it moved to Netflix for season 2, and that is where it's remaining for season 3, I guess, too. So that's cool. Let's see. TBS renewed American Dad for 2 more years, which will take it into its 18th season. I have to be honest, I knew TBS was like running old American Dad episodes. I had no idea that this show was still in production. But, I guess animation is fairly cheap these days, and they wanted to keep Seth MacFarlane happy, so apparently American Dad is in its 16th season now, and it's been renewed for 2 more. Didn't know that. Freeform renewed Grownish and Good Trouble, which is the spinoff of The Fosters. I have yet to watch that, but I'm currently on the last season of The Fosters, so I'm sure I will watch that eventually because I do enjoy The Fosters. But they are both set for another entire season. Grownish just premiered season 3 like a week ago, so they're going to now go into season 4, which I assume will premiere around this time next year. So what else? Oh, Comedy Central, they've inked Tosh.0 for 4 more years. Another show that I didn't, I mean, I don't have cable anymore, so like unless it shows up really on my Hulu or Amazon, or it's something I steadily watch, I just don't pay much attention that things are still on. So Tosh.0 apparently is still on, and it's getting another 4 years out of Comedy Central. And they've also given a second season pickup before this show premieres. It's called Aquafina is Nora from Queens. that's the whole title. Awkwafina obviously is the actress. She just won a Golden Globe for the movie The Farewell, and she's been in a bunch of movies and comedy shows, Ocean's 8 among them. But the show is actually called Awkwafina is Nora from Queens. So I don't really know the premise of it. It will premiere, I believe, at the end of this month, but they've already renewed that for a second season. I think that's kind of the thing to do now, because networks want you to know they're behind these shows. Like, that's what Apple TV Plus did. They renewed C, the morning show, and the Dickinson show for 2 seasons before Apple Plus even launched, because I think they wanted to be like, listen, guys, hey, we're all in on these shows. Like, it won't be one and done. Like, you feel free to get invested, I guess. And so other networks are sort of now picking up on that trend. Showtime has renewed a few of their shows. Shameless is coming back for season 11, which they announced will be its final year. It's either currently in season 10 or about to start season 10. I'm still on like season 4 of Shameless, so I don't know much about it. But I guess the original UK version ran 11 seasons as well, so this will tie that. Obviously, we will have more episodes here in the US because, I don't know what Shameless in the UK runs, but most UK shows only run like 6 or 8 episode seasons, and obviously Shameless runs more than that. But Showtime also gave pickups to 2 of the queer shows that I reviewed about a month ago, and that is the L Word, Generation Q, which I didn't think was that good, and Work in Progress, which I really liked. It was, in fact, my number 10 new show of 2019. So great news there that those are both getting pickups for season 2. And then Hulu is my last one with pickups, and that is Dollface, which I gave an unfavorable review to, and Wu-Tang: An American Saga, which is very odd because I thought that was a limited series. I forget if it was 8 or 10 episodes, but those episodes and then done. But it performed obviously very, very well for Hulu. In fact, as an aside, they released a few little nuggets. Well, Hulu didn't, but I guess Amazon did, for Mrs. Maisel. These streaming services are very kind of tight-lipped on the ratings that their shows get. But Nielsen does monitor some of the shows, and Amazon had them monitor Jack Ryan, which was their highest rated, and then Mrs. Maisel season 3 doubled what season 2 did, but still is a little bit under Jack Ryan, and then The Boys on Amazon was the other one. So, we're getting a few little nuggets of information from some of these different platforms now, which is kind of cool. But yeah, anyway, so I guess the reviews are good enough, or the ratings rather, for Wu-Tang: An American Saga, that they're going to do a season 2. I didn't finish the first season yet, so I don't know where it ends, but because they were thinking it was a limited run, I sort of just assumed they were going to wrap it up when they became famous or whatever. I don't know, but we'll get a season 2 now, and we'll see what happens in the next life of Wu-Tang. And then the only cancellations I have is Facebook Watch, which is going to veer more towards their non-scripted shows. They've got the Steve Harvey Talk Show that just premiered this week. I talked about that a few weeks ago. Also, Red Table Talk, which I haven't seen, but I've watched clips from and heard clips from on one of the morning shows that I podcast. And it's obviously very popular with sort of the gossip magazines, because Jada Pinkett Smith has these famous people on, and they really spill their guts and stuff. So that's entering into its 5th year. So they're going to gear more towards that type of programming and less towards scripted shows. So Limetown with Jessica Biel, which I gave a positive review for a couple months ago, that is out after 1 season. And also Sorry for Your Loss, starring Elizabeth Olsen. I don't know much about that. I did not watch it, but I know who obviously Elizabeth Olsen is, but she's out. However, Jessica Biel just got signed onto a Freeform show, so while they were talking over at Freeform about Grownish and all of that, they also mentioned Jessica Biel is going to be in this thriller for them called Last Summer, so that's going to premiere I guess maybe in the fall or something. So Limetown is over, unfortunately, but we see Jessica Biel again in the fall. So that's your pickups and cancellations. But there was a lot of other news coming out of the Television Critics Association about brand new shows that either are like being worked on for pilots or stuff that has been ordered either directly to series or they have picked up the pilot to series. And what that means, direct to series, means that the network didn't even want to see a pilot. They just said, you know what, yes, we like this, do 10 of them, do 13 of them, whatever. That can certainly backfire. Michael J. Fox had a similar deal with NBC back about, I don't know, 6 years ago or something when the Michael J. Fox show premiered. It was horrible, but they ordered a full season of it, which at the time was like 22 episodes, I think, or 24 maybe even. They didn't end up running all of them, but it could definitely be a little bit risky. But I think a little less risky are stuff coming out, certainly on the CW's plate, which is Superman and Lois, which is an offshoot of Arrow, which will be ending this season, and then Walker, which is the reboot of Walker, Texas Ranger. We talked about this maybe 3 months ago when it was first announced. Jared Padalecki is wrapping up Supernatural after 15 years, and obviously he has a great relationship with the CW because of that show, so he's going to be the star of the Walker reboot, simply titled Walker. So both of those are coming in the fall. Superman and Lois, obviously, you know what that's about, an update sort of Lois and Clark or whatever, and will fit in with the whole Supergirl and the whole Arrowverse they have over there. Also, Sci-Fi has announced they're going to do a Chucky show based on the Murderous Doll. The plot basically is that an old Chucky doll is found at a yard sale by a family and then ends up wreaking havoc the way only Chucky can. NBC has a couple of comedy pilots in the works. Or actually, I think these are direct to series, not pilots. But Young Rock, which is going to be Dwayne Johnson, and I guess it's going to be somewhat based on his upbringing, sort of like Everybody Hates Chris did with Chris Rock. And then, of course, the character Sheldon on Big Bang Theory. They have young Sheldon now. So this is going to be called Young Rock. And from what I read, Dwayne Johnson is going to be appearing in every episode. And I think that means more than just a voiceover. So maybe he plays his own father or something. I don't know. But that will be interesting. And then Kevin Hart is involved with a night school show based on his hit movie with Tiffany Haddish, which I actually didn't really think was all that good. But it certainly made money. It was made for about $29 million and made over $100 million. So it got more than 300% of its profits. So obviously Kevin Hart's very popular as well. So they're going to put that on to series. They have not stated whether that's going to be on NBC proper or maybe on their Peacock app, which I have a little bit more to say. Well, actually, let's talk about that then now. The Punky Brewster reboot is a go at Peacock. We talked about this a few months ago as something that was being discussed. It is all set. Soleil Moon Frye reprises her role as now adult Punky, and I guess taking in sort of a child that reminds her of her former self. I'm in for that because I loved the Punky Brewster show as a kid. I was the exact right age when that was on. I would say I was probably about 7 or 8 when that show premiered, maybe even a little younger. And so I remember the show. I remember the cartoon show. I was all in on that. So that will be interesting on the Peacock. But yeah, it didn't say whether Night School will be on NBC proper or sent over to Peacock. You've also got Mother Mary on Pop TV. They are losing one of their big hits in Schitt's Creek, which I still have yet to watch. I kind of want to start from the beginning, which I know is on Netflix. And I had first heard about the show years ago before it was really popular, before it was even on Netflix. I love Catherine O'Hara, and I heard she had a new show out. So, but it was Canadian only at the time. I think it was before Pop TV even existed. So it just sort of got lost in the shuffle. But I definitely want to go back and watch that. But they're losing that, so they're trying to fill their void there. They do have One Day at a Time premiering on their channel in I think the end of March. And that's, of course, from Netflix. Pop TV picked it up for a 4th season. So that's awesome because I love that show. But they have a new show coming called Mother Mary, and it stars my girl Rachel Bloom. I love her from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, one of my favorite shows of the decade. And I was intrigued to see what she was going to do next. And it's going to be this show called Mother Mary. She basically is playing the mother of Lucifer. So that should be very fun, very sort of kitschy, and very interesting. So that will be on Pop TV at some point, I think in 2020. You've got Hulu announcing a Steve Martin and Martin short comedy show. It is untitled, but I love those two guys. They are, long friends for decades. And so I'm sure whatever they come up with will be interesting. It's from one of the producers, or maybe even the creator of This Is Us, which is a show that I love. So it may have more of a heart to it than I'm anticipating. And I think Steve Martin and Martin Short, I think, like, fall down funny. I don't know. So we'll see about that. But that's going to be on Hulu. And then Snowpiercer, after like a 5-year ramp up, is finally going to premiere later this year on TNT. This is from a movie starring Chris Evans, sort of between, I think, the first and second Captain America movie. So he was kind of famous, but he was really just sort of building his name as Captain America at the time. And so he was doing some of these other movies that were a little more hit or miss. But this was a great film if you never saw it. It's basically I don't know if it's really a sci-fi movie, but the world has sort of come to an end outside. But this train that is constantly running basically around the world is where most people are existing. And it's a great movie. I want to go back and watch it again now that the show's coming out. But this has been announced and in the works for years. And, people were dropping out and joining, and it was shuffling networks. And at one point, they were going to put it on TBS, which is owned by the same conglomerate that TNT is. Is it Viacom? I don't think it's Viacom, but whatever it is. TBS and TNT are owned by the same people. So TBS was sort of looking for more dramatic fare at the time, and this fell in their lap. But after testing it, they decided to put it back on TNT. So it will still premiere there, and that will be in a few months, I guess. But I'm excited that's finally coming to the small screen. I believe it's going to be a 10-episode order for that. And then I think that's everything for the new shows that have been announced. There is also a Ted Danson show coming to NBC. Now, The Good Place is over. That was ordered directly to series, and that is a Tina Fey and Robert Carlock production, the team behind 30 Rock and Kimmy Schmidt. So I'm sure that's going to be great. So, yeah, that's sort of all that came out of the TV Critics Association. But I do have two more things I want to talk about. One is almost a cancellation, sort of, but I don't know yet, and that is Watchmen. So Season 1 has ended. It was a huge hit, both critically and ratings-wise for HBO. However, Damon Lindelof has decided to leave and go work on other projects. He gave the show and HBO his blessing to continue on with different stories about these characters or other characters in the world or whatever. And so HBO is currently mulling over if they want to do that. Because basically they said that, Damon's vision is what made this such a success, and without him, they're not sure that they want to continue it, or if they do they make it more like a Fargo or a True Detective, where every season is sort of completely different, but set in the same world. So they're still kind of mulling over things for that, which is interesting because I had thought it was just going to be a regular series, but I guess there were other plans in the works. So it'll be interesting come Emmy season, which is in like September, whether HBO puts this in as a dramatic TV show or a limited series. Because if it's only going to be 1 year and done, they may as well just put it in for limited series and win all of the awards. So it will be interesting to see that. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the Jeopardy live Tournament of Champions. It was not live, but you know what I mean. It was the first primetime Jeopardy show in over 30 years. And it saw the biggest 3 contestants the show has ever seen. Brad Rutter, who was the biggest money winner, James Holzhauer, who set the most records, and of course Ken Jennings, who won the most consecutive games. I believe it was 74 games back in the day. And Brad Rutter could have had that chance. We don't know, because when Brad was on in the early 2000s, the rule was still that you could only win 5 times and then you had to go. So he won most of his money through different tournaments on Jeopardy, and that's how he became the biggest money winner. But it was a 4-episode show. It could have gone up to 7 shows, because it was basically a whoever wins 3 games first takes it all, and the show was over. So Ken won the first one, and then James won the second one, and then Ken won 2 more in a row. So it ended after 4 shows. Poor Brad didn't win any of them, but he still went away with $250,000, and he is still the #1 money winner on Jeopardy, even though Ken got $1 million for winning it. But the reason I bring it up, not only because I watched it and it was awesome. I'm not really going to, grade it, because, of course, Jeopardy is amazing. And I actually did fairly well. There were, like, a lot of movie categories and music questions, more than usual, and very few mythology or Shakespeare categories. That's usually, like, pun intended, I suppose, but my Achilles heel. But the reason I bring it up is because ABC struck ratings gold with this show. It is, as of now, the #1 non-sports broadcast in primetime for the entire season. I think, well, the Golden Globes also did very well for NBC, but I think that was overall. I think Jeopardy is in the 18 to 49 demo, which is like that desirable demographic. But whatever it is, it was a huge rating success, and it was the best. What did I read? It was the #1 non-sports broadcast in primetime for 18 to 49 in 4 years. Since The Big Bang Theory had like 16 million one week, a few years ago. But these things hit about 15 million apiece. Varying results. The 4th one actually was the lowest rated, but that first week where it went Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they each got between 14 and 15 million viewers, which in this day and age is amazing. So ABC has made it sort of their mission to do at least one live or live feature every month. Last month they had the Norman Lear Good Times and All in the Family live episodes. Next month they're going to carry the Oscars. I don't know what they'll do in March, but they've already been talking about doing another Jeopardy Tournament of Champions. Now, of course, that depends on Alex Trebek's health. But Jeopardy's like the show that keeps on going. Like, there's a few shows in syndication that you can always count on for ratings gold. That's Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, and Judge Judy. They're always like at the top of the chain. Jeopardy actually regularly gets 9 million or more viewers every single night, which, again, in this day and age of TV is insane. So that's great. So this was even a tick up from that. I mean, getting 15 million eyeballs. Now, granted, a lot of people are probably watching Jeopardy more than maybe they did a year ago because of Alex Trebek's cancer diagnosis, and, this may be his last year on the show. So maybe there's some extra eyeballs on that. But, I mean, Wheel of Fortune also routinely gets close to 10 million a night. So I don't think it's Alex Trebek's health. I think it's that Jeopardy is just a stalwart in this industry. And so is Judge Judy. She gets over 10 million a day, by the way, and I love her. But so ABC is continuing on with these live events. I'm curious to see what else they have in them. I mean, this is part of what's taken the Connors off the air for 6 weeks, which I'm kind of bummed about because we're still 2 weeks away from the Connors returning. But I was happy to see the numbers for this be so successful. They did The Little Mermaid recently, and that struck some rating success for them. I didn't get to see how the second Norman Lear live thing did for them. I know the first one was gangbusters, ratings-wise. I don't know how the second one did for them, but yeah, so the Jeopardy ratings were huge, and hopefully we see more of this sort of event television, not just from ABC, but from others as well. So let's get into the reviews. Like I said, I have 4 shows to review for you, as we're still kind of starting out with the mid-season stuff. Last week we had a couple from Fox, and this time we start with one from NBC. This is called Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist, and this is a musical dramedy, they call it, and it's definitely, I would say that's an apt description. It's certainly a musical, and then it's also got some comedic elements to it, but it's also pretty dramatic. It stars Jane Levy, who you may remember from Suburgatory, which was a very funny show that lasted 3 years on ABC, and she's now an adult. I mean, she was at least playing a teen in Suburgatory. I don't know if she was a teen still, but she's, firmly in like her mid-20s at this point in life, and I think the character is as well. So she plays a computer coder who has recently been promoted, and she has a freak accident in the MRI machine. Basically, she was having an MRI done, and there was an earthquake, so the playlist on the computer that she was listening to just went crazy and started playing all these weird songs. And so now she gets out of the MRI and she can hear people's most inner thoughts by way of music, and they start like singing it to her. Is it in her head? We don't know, but it's certainly what they're thinking about. She has one of her coworkers is kind of suicidal, and she walks by and he's singing Mad World, and all this stuff. And then you've got Lauren Graham playing her sort of hard-edged boss. You've got Skylar Astin, who at least I first saw in the Pitch Perfect movie, so singing is right in his wheelhouse. You've also got Peter Gallagher, who plays her father, who has a lot of physical issues. It's a progressive disorder where every so often it's like something else will fail him, so he's sort of almost in a vegetable-like state. Her mother, played by Mary Steenburgen, is comforting him and stuff. And what's great for her is now that she can hear people's innermost thoughts. She was kind of down on herself and all of this, and wondering if her dad even understood her, and all of a sudden Peter Gallagher came to life and started singing True Colors by Cyndi Lauper. It was very touching, and so now it's like, even though her father is kind of a vegetable, she can hear what he's thinking through the songs. I apologize, by the way, I've had a cold all day, so I'm chewing on a Halls. That's like finally done. But it's a good cast. I like the premise a lot. The music that they're picking is like really, pretty big hits. We had the Beatles song in there. We had, like I said, True Colors. I'm trying to think of what else they sang to her. But she also has a neighbor who, in the beginning, we see like always kind of sings to herself, but very loudly. So, Jane Levy can hear it leaving her apartment. And so they have a little, confrontation there. But after Zoey realizes she's got these powers, she hears her neighbor singing and she knocks up. She's like, okay, are you singing or am I just imagining that? And so I think they're going to, strike up a friendship from that. Only one episode in, it's hard to tell the potential of this, but I do kind of like these feel-good type shows that are a little bit, I don't know if supernatural is the right word, but, just something a little bit different, a little bit quirky. I watch God Friended Me on CBS, which is not a great show, but, it's got that sort of same vibe that this does, of like some sort of external force guiding a person to help others. And so I always kind of like that concept, and if you've got great music to put in it, and likable characters. I love Jane Levy. I think she was funny in Suburgatory. Even in, like, she did a couple of horror movies. She was in Don't Breathe and Evil Dead. She was good in those as well. Certainly not funny, but she was good in them. So I like her a lot. I'm glad to see her having another show, and I always like Lauren Graham. Lauren Graham is listed as recurring, though, which kind of bumps me out because I do love her so much. I would love to see her every week, but perhaps that's not meant to be. Skylar Astin, he's the same character here as he is in Pitch Perfect. I don't think he has a lot of, no pun intended, but range as when it comes to acting. But he is a good singer. I'll give him that. So it's fine. But he's kind of making the same faces he does in Pitch Perfect and singing the exact same way. And so that's a little bit of a disappointment to me. But some of the other characters that she works with are interesting, and I'm sure we'll get to know them a little more. So yeah, overall I enjoyed this. I'm curious to see where we go from here, and I leave Zoey's Extraordinary Playlist on NBC with a B. So up next we have a reboot, and this is for Party of Five. Now I watched this show back in the 90s. I was, I think, a senior in high school when it started. So when I got to college, this is back in the 90s, so not every room had a TV in it. So we would go to the TV lounge in the middle of the Student Union building, and a bunch of us would get together every Wednesday night at 9 and watch Party of Five. And there typically were 5 of us, so we kind of joked it was like Party of Five for Party of Five. But the show back then focused on the Salingers, who lost their parents in a car accident, and then Charlie, the head of the family, has to basically take care of everybody. So here it's an update for the current era and the current climate, and it's about a Latino family the parents are being deported. They've been here for 18 years running a restaurant, but ICE comes in and says, no, you don't have your papers, you got to go, leaving the family to figure out what they're going to do. And so, essentially, it's the same sort of theme, although in this one the parents are still alive, just sort of at the moment incapacitated. And so the kids have to figure out how to get along by themselves without them, and, are they going to be sent to foster care? A lot of questions need to be answered still. I thought this was very likable. Look, the original was very soapy, and this one is too. So but if that's what they're going for, like, I don't think they're necessarily going for This Is Us type crying, but I think they're going for a dramatic soap opera. It's not like, Desperate Housewives, which is lighter, and even between Party of Five and 90210 was on at the same time. 90210 took itself a little too seriously, but there was some humor there. Party of Five was kind of dark, even back then, and I think this sort of goes along that same line. And I don't know most of the people really in it. The head of the family is played by Brandon Laraquente, I'm going to say. He plays Emilio, which, he's the oldest of the family, an aspiring rock star, and now he has to sort of drop all of that to take care of the rest of his family. You've also got Nico, I should probably say, Guardado. He's the second oldest. Emily Tosta is the twin of Beto, and she's a straight A student. She's sort of based on the Nev Campbell character. I mean, these are all kind of the archetypes from the original show. Age-wise, they're about the same, and everything about them is sort of similar. Let's say, right down to El Paris Legaspi, who is the youngest that's not the baby. She plays Valentia, and she is the younger sister, who is a big old whiner and a complainer, and she's clever. She is trying to figure out a way to do things and get around ICE so their parents can come back to them and everything. And she is really doing a great job at the role, because Claudia, who was played by Lacey Chabert in the original Party of Five, was so annoying and so just shut the hell up. But I think that was the whole purpose of the character, so she's really doing that role justice. I actually hated Lacey Chabert for a while because of that, because I was like, oh god, she's so annoying. But then she was in Mean Girls, and I was like, okay, she's pretty funny, and she was actually just playing a part that she was told to play. So it's the same dynamic here, just, set in a restaurant, so they have to figure out how to run the restaurant now, as well as take care of each other. Everything's a little bit soapy on Freeform. I mean, The Foster certainly is, even Grownish is, to a degree. So I think it being on Freeform is a good home for it in this day and age. I think it is timely and topical. I mean, the other Party of Five wasn't really topical. You could put it on now, and it probably would. It might be a little dated, but I mean, the themes I think would still hold up today. Whereas this is more forth and now. I'm not sure if that helps it or hurts it in the long run, but I think these types of shows tend not to hold up that well 20 or 30 years after the fact anyway. So it probably doesn't matter. It probably helps it that it's as topical as it is. I liked it. I give the Party of Five reboot a B+. Looking forward to more episodes of that on Freeform. So we close with 2 shows on Netflix, just like we did last week. They're cranking them out. They don't have any sort of schedule. They just say, well, we'll put 2 out. And it's interesting, though. They sort of do it in pairs, because last week they put up 2 dramas, and this week they put up 2 comedies. One is an hour long, though, and one is a half-hour, very straight-ahead satirical comedy. And the hour-long one is maybe a little dramatic as well, but it's listed as a comedy. And that's AJ and the Queen. That's the one we're going to talk about first. This is from RuPaul and Michael Patrick King, who, he has done Sex and the City. I mean, he's done a lot of things in his career. He has directed a bunch of things. He was a big part of The Comeback with Lisa Kudrow. He's done a lot of things on Will and Grace as a consultant or a producer. So he's had his hand in a lot of things, several of them with a LGBTQ vibe to them, like Will and Grace, and let's be real, Sex and the City. But here we just go for the jugular with it, with RuPaul starring in it and co-creating it, and in fact writing about half of the 10 episodes that are up on Netflix. And the essential premise is she plays Ruby Red, who is a drag queen that is super popular, but she's aging a bit, so she's getting down on her luck a little bit. Money's coming a bit tight, so she decides to get up enough money to move to I think it's Brooklyn, or no, it's Queens. Queens in Queens is the name of the club. Her and her buddy are going to go to Queens and start a drag queen club up there called Queens in Queens, and we sort of see this at the beginning of the very first episode. And as the episode goes on, we realize that the situation is a little more dire than even she knew. She gets ripped off by someone who she thought was a good guy that she was dating, her lover. Turns out she was being scammed this whole time. I say she as the drag queen Ruby Red, but she really is a man for most of the, at least first episode, which, by the way, I love RuPaul as a male actor. I think he does a really good job. Not that I don't love RuPaul as well, in her own way, and of course one of my favorite of her performances as the guidance counselor in the Brady Bunch movie, but I think RuPaul the man is a really good actor. So I was glad to see him sort of doing his, reaching out his acting chops a little bit in this. And he has a blind best friend, and then there's also this young boy who we find out some things about by the end of the episode that I don't want to give away, but he's basically this runaway homeless kid. His mom, I think, died a month ago. Something happened to the mom a month ago. Either she left and never came home, or she died. I forget. You could see how riveting it was. No, I actually did like it, but yeah, so he's sort of a scam artist as well, and Ruby Red's like, hold on here, no, I already got ripped off today, this isn't the time. But the kid ends up sort of stowing away with RuPaul on his way to the Big Apple. So, hence the title AJ and the Queen. And that sort of is the whole first episode. So I guess the rest of the season is probably, their trials and tribulations getting to Queens, maybe. I don't know. But it's Netflix, so all 10 episodes are up right now if you do want to binge them. But I did not. I just watched the first one. But I thought it was pretty good. of the four today, it's the worst. But what's nice is none of these shows today are getting a negative review, and that's rare for me to watch four new shows and like all of them to varying degrees. This is the worst of the four, I will say that, but probably more because I don't know that it needs to be a full hour. I think it was riveting enough for that hour, but obviously, as you can tell, I'm not exactly even sure where AJ's mom went, and why this kid is homeless and fending for themselves. But I think the dynamic will show itself more in future episodes because we don't really find out that they're going to be hitched up together until the end of the episode. I mean, I figured it because of the title of the show, AJ and the Queen. We're not spoiling that for you. I think that's obvious from the name. But most of the episode they were not together, and when they were sort of fighting, and Ruby Red was like, no, like, you're not a part of this. Like, you got to stay here. So yeah, there's some funny moments between Ruby Red and her blind friend. There's some humor to be had there, and not at the expense of the blind necessarily, but more sort of, well, I guess I was going to say the character Deadpool, but he does kind of make fun of her a little bit for being blind. But it's not like quite mean spirited, but this blind dude has real flirtatious nature about him. So when they go to the cops to deal with it, the money loss, he's like flirt with the cops and everything, and I think it definitely has humor in it. I'm not sure that RuPaul should have written the episode by himself. I think maybe he could have gotten help or punched up a little bit, especially since half of the episodes were written by him. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure how well it's going to hold up over 10 hours worth. But I like the premise. I like a lot of things about it. I just think maybe an hour is too long for this show. But we will see. For now, I leave AJ and the Queen with a C+. And then finally, we've got Medical Police, which is a spoof show basically on like spy thrillers and spy dramas. And it is not only from the same people, but set in the same world as Children's Hospital, starring Rob Corddry. I didn't watch a lot of that show. I've seen clips of it, but I never really got into it. So I don't really have a connection to these characters, but most of the characters we see in that first couple of scenes in this show, Medical Police, are directly from Children's Hospital. You've got Henry Winkler there as the the hospital ambassador, whatever, or the accountant. And then you've got Rob Corddry in it as his character in Children's Hospital, Blake Downs. Malin Ackerman shows up. So a lot of the people that are in Children's Hospital are here. And then basically, if you're familiar with Children's Hospital, it's Lola and Owen that are the stars of this show, which is Emily Hayes, or Aaron Hayes, rather, and Rob Hubel, who I know from a bunch of different things, but he's in one of my favorite movies, The Descendants, which is a very serious movie, and here he's being very silly. But I've seen him be silly in other things as well. But basically, she is looking for a ride to, try to stave off this disease or whatever, and she can't find a ride, so he accepts, for some money, but then they end up on this spy mission together, and the head of the mission ends up getting killed, and so now they're on their own, and trying to figure out, what's going on. There's very interesting people in this, because you've got also Jason Schwartzman, and I don't think he's probably in too many episodes, but he might recur as the tech guy. They call him the Goldfinch, sort of the tech guy that's in the van that's trying to help them. I think satire can go one of two ways. I think they can just try way too hard and it can be horrible, or it can be, rip-roaringly funny, like Sledgehammer, one of my favorite all-time satires, or Police Squad is another great example. This falls sort of somewhere in between. I think at times it does try a little too hard. There is a great running gag, and I watched 2 episodes of this because this is only a half hour, so I watched a full hour of all of these shows. And so I watched 2, and in this there's sort of a recurring theme where they're chasing after this Muslim, and they keep having to explain to everybody that they're questioning about him that they're not focusing on him because he's a Muslim. He just happens to have a lot of the clues and stuff that they're looking for, and like they find a notebook, and so there's a recurring gag with that, and like just being very PC. So I liked that. I thought that was funny. And I like Erin Hayes. She was in that first season of Kevin Can Wait, which was kind of a horrible show. But then I saw her pop up in The Dangerous Book for Boys on, I think that was Amazon Prime. So hard to keep them all straight, but I believe it was Amazon Prime. It was only 6 episodes and then it was canceled, but she played the mom on that, and I thought she was really delightful. And then, of course, she's been on Children's Hospital and some other things. But I think she's really a great, like, comedic. Her timing is good. Like, she's a good comedic actress. And her chemistry with Rob is great. Sort of a love-hate relationship there, but now they have to work together. So I enjoyed this show. I don't think it's, going to break a whole lot of new ground. But I think, for a good laugh, you could certainly do worse. And I leave Medical Police with a B. So that's it. Like I said, everyone this week is a positive review. Very rare to get 4 brand new shows and have them all be at least decent. None of them were amazing. None of them blew me away, but none of them were average or less than either. AJ and the Queen comes the closest with a C+, and that ain't bad. So that's it. Next week we're going to have, I think, a bunch of new shows because I think we're finally getting into like the real meat and potatoes of mid-season, so I think we're going to be starting a lot of new shows both on networks and on streaming. And I know there's a new Apple TV Plus show coming up soon. I think there's a new Disney Plus show before the end of the month as well, so I'll certainly be reviewing those and anything else I can figure out. So thanks so much for watching. We will be on Monday putting up the Best and Worst TV of the Decade show. I gathered 3 of my friends and did that, so that's going to be up on Monday. And then I've also recorded the Best and Worst Movies of the Decade with the old Film Fanatics crew, Justin and Joe. So I'll be posting that probably a few days later. So look out for both of those. And in the meantime, I'll be back next week with another brand new TV news and reviews for you. So we'll see you then. Thanks so much. Bye.